The Golden Boy Award. It's a trophy given to the most exceptional talent under 21 years old every single year. But today, we're specifically going to be looking back at the top 20 nominees of the 2020 Golden Boy Award and see how these players are currently doing in their footballing careers. First, let's start off at 20th place. We got the Dutch left back Mitchel Bakker. Now, Bakker started off his career at Ajax and went through their youth system. He then only made 2 senior appearances with the Dutch Giants though, before signing for PSG on a free transfer in July 2019. And at PSG is when Bakker started to make a name for himself as a young and upcoming talent, and play a small part in PSG winning the League One title. Granted, it ended early because of COVID-19. In the next season, Mitchel Bakker actually became a consistent player for PSG at the left back position, and overall, he made 40 appearances for the French Giants, getting 2 assists during the campaign. Additionally, he was starting most of the League One games and come off the bench of the Champions League, where PSG made it far and reached the semifinals before getting knocked out by Manchester City. Additionally, Bakker collected a couple of trophies, like the Coupe de France after playing the entire 90 in the final against Saint Etienne, and also the Trophy des Champions. And because of this impressive season for Bakker, he ended up being included in the top 20 candidates of the 2020 Golden Boy Award. However, in the season after this achievement, Bakker decided to leave PSG and join Bayer Leverkusen for around 7 million euros plus add-ons. Bakker could have stayed and fought to become an undroppable starter, but instead, he took his talents to Germany. This wouldn't end up being the worst decision, because during his time there, he would score 5 goals to get 7 assists in 70 games for them, and pretty much became a starter. However, literally the summer before Bayer Leverkusen won the league for the first time, Bakker decided he wanted to take his talents elsewhere, which is why he joined Atalanta over in Italy in the summer of 2023 for 9.5 million euros, where he still is today. Sadly for Bakker though, this move might have not been the best one for him, because he rarely gets on the pitch for Atalanta these days, with him only playing 91 minutes total in the last 17 league games. He also has still never played a senior national team game for his country, the Netherlands. So although Bakker still seems to be a decent player, so far he isn't living up to the potential of a Golden Boy nominee. But he's still young obviously, so he still has time to turn it around. Next on this list, we got Fabio Silva, who got 19th place on the 2020 Golden Boy shortlist. Now, Fabio Silva was once known as one of Portugal's brightest talents coming up. He played for both top academies in the country, Benfica and Porto mainly. And eventually, after scoring 20 goals in 26 games for the Porto under-19 team, Silva was called up to train with the Porto first team. Then in August 2019, Fabio Silva got his professional debut for Porto at just 17 years and 22 days old, becoming the youngest league player in the club's history. Additionally, he became the club's youngest player in European competitions after getting his Europa League debut, the club's youngest starter when he lined up against Portuguese club Santa Clara, and the club's youngest goal scorer in Porto history, after he scored against Coimbrões in the Portuguese domestic competition. With all of this and more, Fabio Silva would be rewarded with a medal as Porto went on to become the champions of the Portuguese league, and this would also lead Fabio Silva to be named in the top 20 list of the 2020 Golden Boy Award. The hype for this young Portuguese prodigy was real, and the Premier League club Wolverhampton Wanderers bought into the hype. So in September 2020, they broke their club record transfer fee and splashed an unreal amount of 35 million euros to sign the kid. Fabio Silva would proceed to get a generous amount of game time in the Prem for being as inexperienced as he is, with him getting 37 appearances. Not only that, he did well for being an 18-year-old, getting 6 goals and 3 assists across all competitions. However, after this, his time at Wolves would go downhill, because in the following 21-22 campaign, Silva wouldn't bag a single goal, and in the summer of 2022, Silva would join Anderlecht over in Belgium on a season-long loan. But this loan would only last half a season, because even though Fabio Silva would go on and score 11 goals to get 4 assists and 32 appearances, he would have an alleged falling out with the coach Brian Reemier. So in January 2023, Fabio Silva would be loaned out to PSV Eindhoven over in the Netherlands instead, where he would also have a decent showing, scoring 5 goals, getting 2 assists in 19 games, and played a part in PSV Eindhoven winning the KNVB Cup. However, after the 22-23 season, when Fabio Silva returned to England, Wolves decided that he was still too inexperienced to play in the Prem, so they loaned him out to the legendary club of Rangers over in Scotland, where he scored 4 goals for them at the time of recording this. Yeah, safe to say Fabio Silva's career has had plenty ups and downs, and right now it's not looking too good. But Fabio Silva is one of the youngest players, if not the youngest player on this list, with him still being 21 years old. So he's got plenty of time to turn it around and become the Golden Boy nominee level star everyone thought he would be. The next player on this list is the once highly rated English talent, Callum Hudson-Odoi, who got 18th place on the 2020 Golden Boy shortlist. But real quick before we get on with that though, please remember to subscribe to the channel. We're close to 100,000 subscribers and I would just really appreciate it, so thank you. And also if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram. both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall just to get to know me more. So if you want to, feel free to hit me up with that follow. Thank you. Now Callum Hudson-Odoi was Chelsea through and through, with him joining their academy in 2007 and staying with them all throughout his youth. He was one of the most highly rated English prospects ever. Eventually, Callum Hudson-Odoi's time playing youth football will come to an end, because after a successful preseason right before the 18-19 campaign, Chelsea manager Sarri at the time said Hudson-Odoi impressed him so much that he would stay with the senior team. This would be Hudson-Odoi's debut season for Chelsea, and off the bat in January 2019, he impressed during his limited minutes so much that top clubs in Europe wanted him, and one of them was Bayern Munich. I remember at the time I heard so many reports of Bayern Munich offering £70 million to sign Callum Hudson-Odoi, and I remember hearing that Chelsea rejected that because that offer was too low. That's how highly rated Callum Hudson-Odoi was. Not only that, in the summer of 2019, after Callum's debut season, Bayern Munich wanted him again and offered another deal, but Chelsea rejected it once again, with a new Chelsea manager at the time, Frank Lampard, saying that he's going to be a world-class player with Chelsea. Now with the whole world, especially Chelsea, gassing up Hudson-Odoi to become a future world-class player, he was obviously going to be nominated for the top 20 list in the 2020 Golden Boy Awards. But sadly, Callum Hudson-Odoi hasn't rose to stardom since then. Throughout the rest of his Chelsea tenure, Callum would impress here and there, but it would be pretty inconsistent, and a huge reason for that would be his injury issues, especially a serious one towards the end of the 21-22 campaign, where he would have a serious neurological injury that wouldn't allow him to pass the ball more than 10 yards. This injury took a toll on him, and he was out for months. Eventually, right before the 22-23 campaign, Callum Hudson-Odoi would finally get to play in the Bundesliga, but not for Bayern, and instead he would be loaned out to Bayer Leverkusen on a season-long loan. But he failed to impress the Leverkusen hierarchy and Xabi Alonso, with Hudson-Odoi scoring 0 league goals, and his only goal came in the Champions League against Atletico Madrid. It's not like he was getting assists either, because he only got one, and that was in the first Bundesliga matchday against Freiburg. So safe to say, Hudson-Odoi's career trajectory wasn't looking so great. But in the summer of 2023, Callum Hudson-Odoi would take his talents to somewhere else in the Premier League, with Chelsea evidently moving on from him. So he decided to sign with Nottingham Forest on a £3 million deal with add-ons. Crazy because a few years before, he was apparently worth more than £70 million. But after serious injury issues and a poor season, he was sold for only £3 million. Crazy what could happen in a few years. For Nottingham Forest though, I mean, he's playing okay. Like, he's got 5 goals and 2 assists in 30 games, and in the second half of the season, he's playing so much better than the latter half of 2023. But even though every football fan can see that he's getting his confidence and swagger back, he just isn't the same as that once highly rated Chelsea prospect. Now Callum could still turn it around since he's got plenty of time, but to see the potential of where he could have been, it's kinda sad to see him this way, not gonna lie. I'm rooting for him though. Moving on to 17th place in the 2020 Golden Boy Award list, we got the Canadian striker Jonathan David. Fun fact, he was actually born in New York City and could have represented us instead. We could have used him, not gonna lie. Anyways, Jonathan David was spent a majority of his childhood in Canada and was always seen as a talented player in football. In his teenage years, he would play for the Canadian club Ottawa Internationals SC, and instead of him wanting to try and join the MLS, which is both an American and Canadian league, David always wanted to go straight to Europe. And in 2018, after getting rejected by Salzburg and Stuttgart after having trials with them, Ghent accepted Jonathan David, so he signed with the club in 2018 and moved to Belgium. Jonathan David would then become a superstar for KAA Ghent and would become their best player during his time there. In the 83 appearances he made for the Belgian club, he scored 37 goals and got 15 assists. And in the 1920 campaign, where he bagged 16 goals in the season, he would be the Golden Boot winner in the Belgian league that campaign. Obviously, a 20-year-old being the top goal scorer of a highly rated European league would catch the news of every top club in the world. Jonathan decided to play it smart though, and wanted to join a good club in a top 5 league that could guarantee him playtime, just so he can develop into a better player, instead of going to a top club and just sitting on the bench. So in August 2020, Jonathan David decided to sign for League One side Lille for around 30 million euros, making him the most expensive Canadian transfer to date. The hype for Jonathan David and his good start with Lille would then get him named in the top 20 list for the 2020 Golden Boy Award, indicating that this Canadian youngster was indeed talented. Now, it wasn't only the start of Lille that David was cooking in, but the entire campaign, Jonathan David was on fire. He scored 13 goals and got 5 assists in 48 games in his debut season, which is pretty good. But also, he scored the all-important goal in the 2-1 win away to Angers on May 23rd to guarantee Lille the League One title for the first time in around a decade. Jonathan David would only become better during his time with Lille, and overall, he's gotten 81 goals and 16 assists in 176 games for the French club. Also, in the 23-24 campaign, David is headed for his best ever goal tally ever, with him already having 23 goals, even though he had a slow start to the campaign. But in the summer, Jonathan David is definitely going to be looking for a move away, with him potentially being ready to play for a bigger club at 24 years old. Any European club would be lucky to get Jonathan David, who is highly experienced not only in Europe, but also at the international level, with him being one of the key players to help Canada qualify for the World Cup for the first time in forever. Lastly, it's safe to say that all the players I mentioned so far, Jonathan David has turned out the best. Canada's got a good one. Going on to 16th place place in the 2020 Golden Boy Awards, we got one of the best players on this list, and it's Rodrygo of Real Madrid. Now I'm going to keep it real with y'all. I'm not going to go into the itty bitty details of the rise of Rodrygo, because well, I've already done that before in a video about him. So if you want to learn more about him specifically, you should check out that vid after watching this one. But I will summarize his career so far, so let's get into it. Rodrygo was born in an impoverished but loving family in a place called Osasco in Sao Paulo, Brazil. From a young age, Rodrygo was always seen as talented, and he decided to follow in his idol, Neymar's footsteps, with him joining the Santos Academy at 10 years old, and also being coached by the same futsal coach who trained Neymar, Barata. Then, Rodrygo would get his first chances with the Santos senior team in 2017, and would shine throughout his tenure there. He became the youngest player of Santos to appear in the Copa Libertadores, and also became the youngest Brazilian to score in that competition at the time as well. Eventually, despite getting scouted by top clubs like Liverpool, Rodrygo was signed with Real Madrid for around 45 million euros in 2018, with him being able to join the club in the following summer. Overall, he had 15 goals and 8 assists in 70 games for Santos. Pretty good for a teenager. Then with Real Madrid, Rodrygo would become a key player for the side, and honestly, become one of the clutchest players for Madrid right now. I mean, he scored within 1 minute of his Real Madrid debut, and at just 18 years old in the 1920 Champions League campaign, he scored his first hat-trick, becoming the youngest player to do that in the competition. Then with him making 19 La Liga appearances, it's right to say that he played a role in helping Real Madrid win the 1920 La Liga title. And of course, with a youngster coming out and performing this way, he was obviously going to be nominated for a top 20 spot in the 2020 list for the Golden Boy Award. After that, Rodrygo would play a crucial role in helping Real Madrid win the Champions League in the 21-22 campaign, after scoring a crucial goal against Chelsea to complete the comeback, and then scored 2 goals in the dying moments against Man City in the semifinals to take Real Madrid to the final, where they would end up defeating Liverpool. Since then, Rodrygo would become a cult hero from Real Madrid, and this even earned him a contract extension at Madrid, where he's set to stay with them until at least 2028. But Rodrygo's career isn't just butterflies and rainbows. He's had some tough moments, like him missing the opening penalty of the shootout for Brazil in the World Cup quarterfinals against Croatia, which eventually got his nation knocked out of the tournament. But despite this, Rodrygo is definitely one of the best players from this top 20 Golden Boy Award list for 2020, and the sky's the limit for this Brazilian super talent. Next on this list is a player I'm obviously fond of since he now plays for my club. It's Ryan Gravenberch. Just like Hudson-Odoi, Ryan Gravenberch was always seen as a highly rated player since his youth days. He grew up in the Ajax Academy, being a crucial player for his young Ajax, the second team, and helping his youth club win the league back in 2018. Not only that, he was one of the key players in the Netherlands under-17 team that went on to win the UEFA European Under-17 Championship in 2018. Also in 2018, Gravenberch received the first ever Abdelhak Nouri Trophy Award, which recognizes the best talent at the Ajax Academy, which was Gravenberch before he got called up for the senior team. He graduated from the academy early as hell too, because in September 2018, he made his senior debut against PSV Eindhoven, Ajax's rivals, and with this debut, Ryan became the youngest ever Ajax player to play in the Eredivisie at just 16 years and 130 days old. Yeah, he made his debut at 16 years old. That's how highly rated Ajax saw him at the time. And eventually in 2020, Gravenberch would be nominated for a top 20 spot in the 2020 Golden Boy Awards list. Deservedly so, to be honest. Anyways, throughout the next few years, Gravenberch would go on to make around 103 appearances for the Ajax senior team, scoring 12 goals and getting 13 assists, with one of his goals being the 2-1 win over Vitesse in the 2021 KNVB Cup final. Speaking about finals and trophies, Ryan Gravenberch went on and won the league with Ajax 3 times, and won the KNVB Cup with Ajax twice. Eventually, Gravenberch felt like he accomplished everything he could at Ajax at his young age, and sought out a different challenge. So in the summer of 2022, Gravenberch decided to take his talents to Germany to play for Bayern Munich, signing with the club for around 18 million euros plus add-ons. Sadly for Gravenberch though, his season with Bayern Munich was one to forget. He did make 34 appearances for the club, but a majority of those were him coming off the bench. Plus, with only 1 goal and 1 assist, he wasn't really contributing much in the attack, which led him to being benched and unfavored by the Bayern hierarchy. So much so that they were happy to let him go in the next summer. That's when in September 2023, on the final day of the transfer window, Liverpool pounced on the chance to sign the young Dutch midfielder for around 40 million euros. And overall in the season, Gravenberch has been a mixed bag, with him impressing at times but also pretty inconsistent. He does have 3 goals and 2 assists so far though, which is already an upgrade compared to his time at Bayern. Overall though, Gravenberch is still a young player, since he's still only 21 years old, and with the guidance of the senior players around him at Liverpool, I'm sure he's capable of being a top midfielder someday. On to the next player on this 2020 Golden Boy Award list, we got another player I'm very fond of since he plays for the country as support. It's Sergiño Dest. Although Sergiño Dest represents the US, he was born and raised in the Netherlands. He chose to represent the US though because in his early days, only the US youth program believed in him. So when it came time to choose which national team he should play for, Sergiño Dest picked the US out of loyalty. Now that we've got that out of the way, Dest played for his local club's academy, Almere City, until 2012, since he decided to move to the Ajax Youth Academy. Even though he started out as a forward, the Ajax Ajax coaches thought he'd be better as a fullback, a position that he'd still be at to this day. Anyways, Sergiño Dest impressed a ton at the Ajax Academy in the 2018-19 campaign, so much so that in the following season, Dest was moved up to the Ajax first team and got his debut in the Johan Cruyff Shield against rivals PSV Eindhoven, but Ajax would win the match 2-0. Then, Dest will quickly become a mainstay with the first team, and by the time his first professional season ended, he made 35 appearances and scored 2 goals for the club. Dest was seen as a top talent coming through the ranks of Dutch football, and eventually, accompanied with his early departure to Barcelona in the summer of 2020, joining the club for 21 million euros plus add-ons with a 400 million euro release clause, it only made sense that he had to be included in the final shortlist of the 2020 Golden Boy Award. Plus, Dest has aura, and he also became the first American to play for Barcelona, and just because of that, he definitely deserves a spot on the list. During his time at Barcelona though, Sergiño Dest was a mixed bag. He performed primarily well during the 2020-21 season, his debut season for Barca, where he was rewarded with a ton of personal achievements in terms of being the first American to do this, to do that, etc. Additionally, under Ronald Koeman, the manager of Barca at the time, Dest would rack up 3 goals and 1 assist in 44 games. But remember, he's a fullback. Goal contributions don't really matter much for him. Speaking about defensively though, it was obvious that Dest needed to improve on the defensive side of his game, but offensively, he was pretty solid, which is why he fit well with Ronald Koeman. But when the next manager, Xavi, stepped in for the following campaign, Dest's time at Barca would come to a stop. Dest would mainly become a bench player for Xavi, who preferred fullbacks to be more defensively better, unlike Dest, who needed to improve in this area. So in this 21-22 campaign, Sergiño's playtime would decrease drastically, and eventually at the start of the 22-23 campaign, Dest would be excluded from the game day squads altogether. Even though Dest didn't want to join another team, he accepted his exclusion from the squad at the very end, and joined AC Milan on a 1-year loan deal with an option to buy for 20 million euros. But Dest would only make a grand total of 14 appearances at AC Milan, mainly coming off the bench, because in the last couple of months, Dest was also excluded from the AC Milan game day squads altogether for not being good enough defensively for Stefano Pioli, the manager. So in those 2 campaigns, Sergiño's career was at an all-time low. Got even worse when AC Milan didn't even sign him permanently too. But Dest has revived his career completely now, with him having a good World Cup personally for the US in 2022, and also because of his recent loan move to PSV Eindhoven on a season-long loan deal with a permanent option included as well. Yeah, Sergiño Dest joined his rivals, a side he grew up disliking in his childhood. But hey, the game's the game. He did what he had to do. Now for PSV, Sergiño Dest has become an undroppable starter in their quest to win the Eredivisie, and that's almost guaranteed at the time we're recording this. Plus, with Dest back in the Netherlands, he seems right back at home and confident once again, something everybody loves to see. And I'm sure with his confidence back, Sergiño Dest could find his way to a top club once again, because this season, he's shown that he's still got the talent. Moving on to 13th place on the 2020 Golden Boy Award final shortlist, we got Sandro Tonali. Oh baby, this is going to be a good one to talk about. The Italian defensive midfielder was part of Brescia's youth system and grew up in it. Eventually, 5 years after he joined the Brescia Academy in 2017, he got his professional debut in the Serie B, and in his first professional season, Tonali would make 19 appearances, getting 2 goals and 2 assists as well. Then in the 18-19 campaign, Tonali would become a key starter for Brescia, and was one of the main reasons why they won the Serie B title and achieved promotion to the Serie A. And although in Brescia's Serie A 1920 campaign, Tonali was one of their standout and brightest players, Brescia would get relegated in the same campaign they got promoted. Thing is, for Tonali though, he was too good to be playing in the Serie B once again, with top clubs around the world, especially in Italy, keeping an eye on him. Eventually, towards the end of the 2020 summer transfer window, AC Milan convinced Brescia to let him go on a season-long loan for 10 million euros, with an option to buy for 15 million euros. With Tonali's great performances at Brescia and him joining AC Milan at a young age, him being named in the final shortlist for the 2020 Golden Boy Award is no surprise. Anyways, Tonali would quickly become a fan favorite at AC Milan, one of the biggest clubs in the history of the game, and his consistency and strong performances in the 2021-22 campaign would help AC Milan lift the Serie A title, the first time in 11 years. Sandro Tonali's great performances would also then get him called up for Italy's national team, and overall, at his time with AC Milan, he would make 130 appearances, scoring 7 goals and getting 13 assists. However, Tonali's chapter at AC Milan would reluctantly end in the summer of 2023. That's because AC Milan were suffering from finances, and they needed a way to get more money into their accounts to help stay afloat, and the best way to do this would be to sell Sandro Tonali, one of their key assets. Obviously, when Tonali heard this, he begged not to be sold allegedly, but AC Milan had no choice. So reluctantly, Tonali accepted the move to recently Saudi Arabia-owned Newcastle United for 70 million euros, making Tonali the most expensive Italian transfer of all time. Tonali would actually have a strong start with Newcastle as well, impressing the fans and even scoring his first goal for the club in his Premier League debut. But then, the worst thing would happen for Newcastle and Tonali. In October 2023, Newcastle United announced that Tonali was being investigated by the Italian prosecutor's office and their football federation in relation to an alleged illegal betting activity. And then in late October, he would be banned from playing football for 10 months for breaching these Italian betting regulations, and also, Tonali Tonali was put into gambling rehabilitation for 8 months. With all this being said, Tonali will miss the rest of the Premier League season, which is why he hasn't appeared for Newcastle since October 2023, and he's also going to miss the Euros with Italy in the summer of 2024. So overall, regarding Sandro Tonali, it's clear that he's a well-rounded defensive midfielder who's got a ton to prove, but he just needs to get over his gambling issues and get back on the pitch to show what he's made of. It's going to be a while from now, but in due time, Tonali will once again show why he was named into the Golden Boy Award Nominees list for 2020. Next on this list, we got the most hated player in this list undisputedly is Mason Greenwood in 12th place. Can't believe I have to talk about this dude, bro. Anyways, I'm not gonna go into the finer details for this guy too, because 1, I don't like the dude, and 2, I've already made a video on him. So if you want to know everything regarding Greenwood, you should check out that video after this one. Like always though, I'm still gonna provide a summary, so here we go. Mason Greenwood bleeds Man United, since after all, he was with the academy from 6 years old. He was also one of their best talents the United Academy has ever seen, with him playing 2 to 3 years above his age group, and finished as the top scorer of the under-18 Premier League North. He was also named the player of the tournament in multiple youth competitions as well. Moving forward, Greenwood was selected to be a part of United's preseason tour in 2018, and then when Solskjaer took over in the middle of the 18-19 season, Greenwood was given his Man United competitive debut, becoming one of the youngest United debutants ever. His real breakthrough to the scene though would be in the 2019-20 season, where he would play 51 games for United, scoring 19 goals and getting 4 assists at just 18 years old. 19 goals in your first full professional season of English football is ridiculous. Everybody knew at the time that Man United had a potential gem in their hands. Eventually, thanks to Greenwood's amazing performances for Manchester United, he was selected amongst the top 20 players for the Golden Boy Award. Despite my personal opinion for him now, Greenwood definitely deserved to be on this list. Then in the next 1.5 seasons for Man United, he would collect an overall of 35 goals and 12 assists in 129 games for Man United, all while still being extremely young. Eventually though, his entire career will flip upside down on January 30th, 2022. To sum it up, Greenwood was accused of allegedly beating up his then girlfriend and now the mother of his child as well. Since then, Greenwood has never played a game for Manchester United. However, in February 2023, the criminal charges against Greenwood were dropped because of the withdrawal of key witnesses and new material that came to light. Now this is probably, and what I think this means, is that the girlfriend didn't want to be involved in this case anymore and the case got dropped. Anyways, regarding this, some football fans believe that this means Greenwood was innocent. Now trust me, I'm all for innocent until proven guilty. I'm a big fan of that, but dropped charges does not equal innocence. Plus, people in abusive relationships struggle with leaving them. I've done my research before in my Greenwood video. It's a true statement that I'm making. Regardless, Greenwood is a piece of shit. But now he gets to play football again, and Getafe gave him the chance to play professionally again. To be fair to him, he's doing well for Getafe, scoring 8 goals and 5 assists in 29 games, and he's showing that he's still got the talent to be a great player. But I don't care. I don't like the guy, never gonna like the guy, and don't want to talk about him anymore. So yeah, bye bye Greenwood. On to the next player, we got Ferran Torres in 11th place of the top 20 players in this Golden Boy Awards list. Now Ferran Torres grew up in the Valencia Academy, with him joining them at just 6 years old. He was one of their brightest talents, and so much so that in 2017, while Torres was still playing for the Valencia B team, both Barcelona and Real Madrid wanted to sign him. But Ferran Torres played it smart and loyal, and signed a contract extension with Valencia. And then eventually in November 2017, Ferran got his professional first team debut. Then a month later, he made his La Liga debut, becoming the first player born in the 2000s to play in La Liga. And a year later in 2019, Ferran Torres became the youngest goal scorer for Valencia in the Champions League ever. Overall, Ferran got himself 9 goals and 12 assists in 97 games, all while still being a young adult / teenager. And this caught the eye of many top clubs, but also it caught the eye of football critics. And this got him on the top 20 list of the 2020 Golden Boy Awards. At around the same time in 2020 as well, Manchester City confirmed that they signed Ferran Torres from Valencia for a transfer fee of 23 million euros. However, Ferran Torres' time at Man City was mixed with highs and lows. Mainly lows in all honesty. He didn't play that much in his 1.5 years at the club, with him making 43 appearances, scoring 16 goals, and getting 4 assists. Honestly, those aren't even bad stats. The real problem was his consistency, because he got injured pretty frequently, and sometimes he had great games, but sometimes, or rather more of the times, he had bad games. This didn't stop Barcelona from wanting to sign him though, so when they approached City with an offer of 55 million euros, City accepted the deal and Ferran Torres became a new Barca player. And with Barca, he's performing a lot better. Although his goal contributions per match stats are lower with Barca, with him scoring 25 goals and getting 13 assists in 106 games, his overall game is much better, especially more recently, with this seeming like he's getting his confidence and swagger back just like he had in Valencia. In fact, as recently as January 2024, he scored his first hat-trick for Barca and got an assist on his 100th appearance in the away game against Real Betis, where Barca won 4-2. So regarding Ferran, even though he's one of the older players on this list, with him being 24 years old right now, his talent is starting to crack through at FC Barcelona and the Spain national team, and I'm excited to see what he's made of in the next few years. The following player on this top 20 list at the 2020 Golden Boy Awards is Vinicius Junior, a player I'm also fond of. Not because I support Real Madrid or anything, because I don't, but because in this specific video I made about Vinicius' rise, it got over 8 million views, and it's the most famous video on my channel. Honestly, the reason why you guys might know me is because of that video. So shout out Vinicius. Anyways, as I insinuated, I already made a video about Vinicius, but I'll summarize his career nevertheless. Vinicius, like Rodrygo and many other top Brazilian footballers, was born into an impoverished yet loving family back in Brazil. When he was 6 years old, Vini's footballing career began as he started to play with one of the branches of Flamengo, a top Brazilian club. And then 4 years later, he started to play for the main Flamengo academy. Then with the main team, Vinicius was impressing so much that before he even turned 18 years old, Real Madrid signed the young Brazilian winger for 45 million euros, becoming the second most expensive transfer from the Brazilian league at the time, only behind Neymar Jr. However, since Vini couldn't play for Madrid yet, he had to stay another season at Flamengo until he turned 18. Overall at Flamengo, Vini excelled and got 10 goals and 4 assists in 55 games as a teenager. Finally though, in July 2018, Vinicius got the move he always dreamed of, Real Madrid. But Vini's Real Madrid career started off poor, like really poor. For the first 3 seasons of Vinicius' Real Madrid career, he was super inconsistent. Sometimes he would show great glimpses of his talent, but most of the time, he seemed like a wannabe Neymar, except he was missing most of the time with his skills and had almost zero finishing ability. He would score screamers from time to time, but usually he stunk on the pitch. So much so that the captain of Real Madrid at the time, Karim Benzema, once told his teammates in a Champions League match to not pass the ball to Vinicius because he was playing against them. That's disrespectful, bruh. Imagine your own captain saying that about you. I just go in the locker room and cry, to be honest. But Vinicius turned his own career around in the 2021-22 campaign and started to finally show why he deserved to be named in the final shortlist of the 2020 Golden Boy Awards list. In the 2021-22 campaign, Vinicius turned into an absolute beast and put Real Madrid on his back sometimes. Overall, he played 52 games, scored 22 goals, and got 20 assists. His goal in the final of the Champions League is the reason why Madrid even won their 14th Champions League in their history as well. Vini showed why he's a big game player and why Madrid were right to invest in him. The following season was pretty much the same thing. His personal stats were ridiculous, with him getting 23 goals and 21 assists in 55 games. In 2 seasons back to back, Vinicius got more than 20 plus goals and assists. This dude Vini is different gravy. He could probably be named as the best player on this list entirely. Even though his most recent 23-24 season is poor to his standards, he still got 18 goals and 10 assists in 30 games. And a large part of this drop off in his game is because of the injuries he suffered. But still, his stats are simply ridiculous. And by the time his career ends, I fully believe he can go down as an all-time Real Madrid great and a Brazilian great. But also, he might have not won the Golden Boy Award, but him and a couple others on this list are the most likely to win the Ballon d'Or in the future, in my eyes at least. And if Vini pulls that off eventually, that would be amazing. Following that, the next player on this top 20 Golden Boy Awards shortlist is Bukayo Saka, who finished in 9th place. And I've already covered Bukayo Saka pretty extensively, but I'll summarize everything here. Basically, Bukayo Saka was born to play for Arsenal. He's been with them since his youth days and was a huge part of their academy. But right before that, he was actually with the Watford Academy for a tiny bit. That's not important though. What is important is that after 10 years of staying with Arsenal, he finally signed his first professional contract with the club. And in November 2018, he made his first team debut for the Gunners. He then went on to become the first footballer born in 2001 to play in the Premier League. That's one hell of an achievement, especially considering how many footballers today are born after 2001. But let's keep moving. Bukayo Saka's first full season would be in the 2019-20 campaign, where Saka would play well as a left back and a left winger, scoring 4 goals and getting 12 assists in 39 games. Also, he played a role in Arsenal winning the FA Cup and came 3rd in the vote for Arsenal Player of the Season. So when you're doing things like that, it's only obvious that you're going to be selected for the 2020 Golden Boy Awards. Respectfully. Moving forward to the next campaign, Saka won the Community Shield and went on to play more of an attacking role, aka the right wing / mid position, and got 7 goals and 9 assists in 46 games. With performances like this, Saka ended up winning his first Arsenal Player of the Season, a huge achievement. Not only that, the level of the performances that Saka was dropping convinced the England manager, Gareth Southgate, to take him to the Euros, where sadly, Saka would suffer the lowest low he might ever have in his life. He had good performances before and during the Euros, like getting the man of the match against Czech Republic in the group stages, but in the final, Saka was a substitute in extra time and was set up to take the 5th penalty for England against Italy. Both Rashford and Sancho missed. So if England wanted to stay alive in the Euros, Saka had to convert the penalty. But instead, he had his penalty saved, and England ended up losing the Euros on home soil. What makes the situation worse isn't just the loss though, but it's the fact that Saka and the other 2 I mentioned received major abuse, and a lot of it was straight up racism. I couldn't imagine what it felt like for these 3 guys, especially Saka, with his kick pretty much ending the game. But Saka wouldn't let this racist abuse keep him down for that long, because he eventually bounced back with Arsenal and actually became their main penalty taker. Also, also overall with Arsenal, he's one of their best players in a side that's challenged for the Premier League title for 2 consecutive seasons. Also helped Arsenal qualify for the Champions League for the first time in forever, and in 220 games for the Gunners, he's gone on and scored 56 goals and gotten 52 assists. Plus, he's kind of redeemed himself with England, with him getting called up for the World Cup, scoring twice in England's 6-2 victory over Iran in the group stages, scoring once in the round 16 game against Senegal, and was named man of the match by BBC and L'Equipe in the loss to France in the quarterfinals. But he did end up winning the England Player of the Year award, and this just shows that both Arsenal and England value him as a top asset. And can you blame him? Bukayo Saka is class. He still has much to learn though, but once he gets everything down, he could be the complete package, more than he already is. Moving on, the next player on this Golden Boy Awards 2020 nominee list is a player I like, not because he's handsome as hell, but because he plays for Liverpool. It's Dominik Szoboszlai. I've talked about him before, but let's just get straight into it. Szoboszlai was born and raised in Hungary, and throughout his childhood, his father allowed him to play in the club he coached to help develop him as a footballer. Eventually, Szoboszlai would catch the eye of RB Salzburg and would be signed by the Austrian Giants, but would be loaned out to FC Liefering for his first professional season for the most part in the 17-18 campaign. After that though, Szoboszlai would be a mainstay with RB Salzburg, and in the 83 games he took a part in for them, he would score 26 goals and get 34 assists. He would also end up being the RB Salzburg Player of the Year in the 1920 campaign and would finish his stint with Salzburg winning 4 league titles and 3 Austrian Cups. Eventually, before he moved on to his next club, he would be selected amongst the top 20 for the 2020 Golden Boy Award. Rightfully so in my opinion, because he had way more experience in professional football compared to some of the players on this list, and he was balling out too. Eventually, in December 2020 though, he was signed with RB Leipzig for 20 million euros, becoming the most expensive Hungarian player in history, a record he himself would break later on in his career. Sadly for Szoboszlai though, he would only get a chance to play for them starting in the 21-22 campaign, but when he gained fitness once again, Szoboszlai became one of the best players for RB Leipzig, and went on to score 20 goals and get 22 assists in 91 games. Additionally, he would become Hungary's youngest ever captain, and would play a role in them qualifying for Euro 2020, which he couldn't take a part in because of injury, and now Euro 2024, where he's set to lead his national team with the armband. But before that, his performances for RB Leipzig impressed top European clubs so much that one of them, Liverpool, pounced to sign him in the summer of 2023, and pay his release clause of 70 million euros to sign the Hungarian star. Now for Liverpool, Szoboszlai has been okay. He's had a couple of injuries and sometimes drops stinky performances, but when Sobo performs well, he performs well, if you know what I mean. And in 38 games he's played in so far, he's gotten 7 goals and 4 assists. Even though his season has been shaky, I truly believe Dominik Szoboszlai has what it takes to become a top player in the world, and I think he'll start to show it soon enough, which would also then help justify why he was included in a Golden Boy shortlist in the first place. On to the next player on this list, we got someone a lot of people in my comments want me to cover extensively. It's Phil Foden. Now a lot of young ballers who grew up in Manchester lean towards supporting United. I mean, Cole Palmer was one of Man City's best prospects out of the academy, but even he used to support United as a kid. Phil Foden though was different, because he bled Man City and has been supporting the club since day one. Not only that, Phil Foden joined the Man City academy when he was just 4 years old, and has been with them since. He performed great through the academy and was playing a few age groups up because he was just that good. Eventually, starting in December 2016, manager Pep Guardiola noticed the young Foden and started to include him in the matchday squads. Foden would then get his debut in the 17-18 campaign, where he would become the youngest English starter in the Champions League at the time, and became the first player born in the 2000s to start a match in the UCL. Throughout the years, Phil Foden would slowly integrate himself in the squad, and in the 3 seasons total leading up to the summer of 2020, he scored 22 goals and got 18 assists, which was great for someone who hadn't even turned 20 years old yet. With him performing so well for City and starting to make a name for himself, he would obviously be named in the final shortlist of the 2020 Golden Boy Awards. It's only right. Skipping over to the season happening right now at the time of recording this, the 23-24 campaign, Phil Foden is really becoming the world-class player that everybody thought he would become, and is definitely in contention to win the PFA Player of the Year award, if he hasn't already by the time you're watching this video. That's because in 45 games, he scored 22 goals and got 10 assists so far, and honestly, he's one of the main reasons why Man City has been performing so well this year. If it weren't for him, Man City might be in a little bit of a pickle, not gonna lie. Overall in his career, Phil Foden has achieved a lot, scoring 82 goals and getting 51 assists in 262 games, also winning 5 Premier Leagues, 2 FA Cups, 4 Carabao Cups, 2 Community Shields, 1 FIFA Club World Cup, 1 UEFA Super Cup, 1 Champions League, having a market value of 130 million euros, and of course being a key player for the England national team now. So safe to say, Phil Foden is definitely living up to the hype of a Golden Boy Award nominee. The next player on this top 20 Golden Boy Awards 2020 list is Dejan Kulusevski. If you didn't know, he was born in Stockholm, Sweden, and initially played for the IF Brommapojkarna Academy, something he's done since 6 years old. And sorry, I probably butchered that club's name. It's too complicated for me, not gonna lie. Speaking about the Swedish club, in the summer of 2016, before making any senior team appearances for them, he joined the Atalanta youth system, and 2.5 years later, in January 2019, he would get his senior debut for the Italian club. He then went on to make a total of 3 appearances for Atalanta in the 2018-19 season, before getting loaned out to Parma for the 1920 campaign. And this is where Kulusevski really started to make a name for himself. During the first half of the season, Dejan was on fire with Parma, and in the first 17 games in the Serie A, he scored 4 goals and provided 7 assists. He was doing so well that the Italian giants Juventus pounced on the opportunity to sign him, which they did in January 2020 for 35 million euros, which potentially could have rose to 44 million euros if some of the variables were accomplished. Kulusevski remained at Parma for the remainder of the season though, where he would finish the campaign with 10 goals and 9 assists in 39 games. And due to these performances, he was awarded with the Serie A Best Young Player of the Season award. So if you're a young player performing like this and winning a prestigious personal award in the Serie A, it's only obvious that you're going to be selected for the final shortlist of the 2020 Golden Boy Award. However, since then, Kulusevski hasn't resembled that same form he once showed. For Juventus, he had a total of 19 goal contributions in 1.5 years, the same amount of goal contributions he had for Parma, something he had in a worse team and only in one season. So with disappointing performances for Juventus, Kulusevski was sent out on loan to Tottenham Hotspur for 18 months, a deal that later became permanent. Now with Tottenham, Kulusevski has had bright moments, like scoring against Manchester City in a 3-2 win, scoring a 100th minute goal against Sheffield United, sealing the latest ever winning comeback in Premier League history, and in 90 games for Tottenham so far, he's gotten 13 goals and 19 assists. So although he is in better form compared to his time at Juventus, Kulusevski still has plenty to do to become the player we all thought he could be. Regardless though, despite representing North Macedonia 6 times in the under 16 level, where he could have stuck with them, Kulusevski chose to represent the country he was born and raised in, Sweden, and he is still a very big part of their future. So if Kulusevski can return to his Parma form, I'm sure he can light it up for Tottenham and the Sweden national team. Moving forward to the next person on this list, we got Eduardo Camavinga at 5th place for the 2020 Golden Boy Award nominees. Now Camavinga's childhood was difficult, with him being born in a refugee camp in Cabinda, Angola, with his mother actually fleeing the civil war in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Eventually, when he was 2 years old, he moved to France, where he would grow up and eventually represent on the international level, playing in a World Cup for them as well. Anyways, when he was young, his house burned down in 2013, and when this happened, Camavinga decided to pursue football to try and help his family financially, and he did just that, obviously. Why else would I be talking about him right now then? After that incident, Camavinga joined the Stade Rennes youth system and excelled so much that when he turned 16 years old, he signed his first professional contract with the club, becoming the youngest ever professional for Rennes at the time. He also later became the youngest player to debut for Rennes, at also just 16 years and 6 months old, also became the youngest player in League 1 to register an assist, and also became the youngest player to win the League 1 Player of the Month as well. So as we can see, Camavinga was an upcoming French prodigy that was starting to gain a lot of eyes on him, and due to this, he was placed 5th on the 2020 Golden Boy Award shortlist. A year later after being on this list, Camavinga would get the opportunity to sign with Real Madrid, which is exactly what he did. And since then, Camavinga has excelled in his DM role with arguably the greatest club on the planet. He's accomplished so much at just 21 years old, with him winning the Supercopa de España twice, the Copa del Rey once, the Club World Cup once, the UEFA Super Cup once, the La Liga title once, probably going to be twice soon, the Champions League once, the French club with Stade Rennes once, the Nations League with France, and probably a World Cup eventually, with France just being so OP. So Camavinga, in my opinion, has a career of even more stardom ahead of him, and he'll definitely live up to that Golden Boy Award nominee hype. Moving on to the next player on this list, in the number 4 spot for the 2020 Golden Boy Award, we got Jadon Sancho. Now Sancho was born in the London area, and at the age of 7, he started playing for the Watford Academy, and then at the age of 14, Manchester City scouts became aware of him and signed him to their academy for £66,000. Now Sancho was one of the best players of the Man City Academy, alongside now Manchester City superstar Phil Foden and also Brahim Diaz. Jadon Sancho would eventually get fast-tracked into training with the first team, and was coached under Pep Guardiola for a little bit too. But in July 2017, during preseason, Sancho was left out of the squad later because of playing time disputes in his new contract, and eventually he decided to leave the club, which is when he decided to join Borussia Dortmund in August 2017. With Borussia Dortmund is when Sancho became a superstar, and he broke a ton of records while playing in Germany, like being the first player from England to play for the Black and Yellow, and being the first player born in the 2000s to score in a Bundesliga match, and the youngest ever Dortmund player to do so. Regardless, throughout the years of playing for Borussia Dortmund, Sancho became a fan favorite and had a great relationship with his teammates, especially Erling Haaland and Marco Reus. In the 134 games he played for Borussia Dortmund at the time, he scored 50 goals and got 64 assists for the club, and also won the German Super Cup and the DFB Pokal Cup, alongside being the top goal scorer in the Pokal Cup that season. So not only did his time at Dortmund get him rewarded as number 4 in the final shortlist of the 2020 Golden Boy Award, but also a move elsewhere. In fact, Manchester United paid the big bucks for Sancho to switch up on his academy team, paying £73 million for the young English winger, in which Sancho accepted. Problem is, Sancho couldn't live up to those high expectations set on him, because in the 82 games he's played for the club, he only got 12 goals and 6 assists. While he was with United, he got called into the England squad for the 2020 Euros, and he was one out of the 3 penalty kick takers that missed in the shootout against Italy in the final to lose at home. Plus, he got exiled by Ten Hag in the 23-24 squad for one reason or another, and with Sancho refusing to apologize, he might have already played his last game for United already. But he did get a loan move back to Borussia Dortmund in January 2024, and he's had some great moments, like scoring a beautiful goal against PSV Eindhoven in the Champions League round 16. But overall, he's only got 2 goals and 2 assists in 16 games, and he's supposed to be entering his prime in a couple of years. That's not good from Sancho, but I'm sure the talent is still there. He just has to unlock it more frequently, and maybe in the future he can reach the level that we all know he could get to. On to the next player on this 2020 Golden Boy Awards list, we got the one and only Alphonso Davies, also known as Fonzie. Now, he was born to Liberian parents in a refugee camp in Ghana, before moving to Canada when Fonzie was 5 years old, the country that Alphonso Davies represents internationally, becoming once the youngest player to appear for their national team, and now Canada's best player easily. Damn, there's 2 Canadian players on this Golden Boy list. That's kinda crazy. Anyways, Fonzie started his football career with an organization called Free Footy, a league for elementary school students who couldn't afford registration fees, equipment, and lacked transportation to games. Then eventually, after playing for 2 Edmonton clubs, he would join the Vancouver Whitecaps Academy, and then went on to play with the Whitecaps FC2 in the USL, before going on to play for the main Whitecaps team in the MLS, becoming the second youngest footballer to play in the league, only behind Freddie Adu. Alphonso Davies would then go on to become one of the rising upcoming stars in the MLS, and the Vancouver Whitecaps in general, and although he was primarily a left back for the club, he still scored 12 goals and got 14 assists in 81 games. Not only that, his play on the pitch was getting eyes from top European clubs, and eventually during the 2018 MLS season, Bayern Munich paid $22 million for his services, a then record for the MLS, and Fonzie would debut for Bayern in 2019. Since then, Alphonso Davies has become one of the main starters for Bayern Munich and has accomplished a lot for the club, making almost 200 appearances for them, like winning 2 DFB Pokal Cups, 3 German Super Cups, 5 Bundesligas, 1 UEFA Super Cup, 1 FIFA Club World Cup, and 1 Champions League, in which in that same campaign, Fonzie murked the hell out of Nelson Semedo to get an assist in Bayern's 8-2 demolishing of Barcelona. Overall, Alphonso Davies has definitely lived up to that Golden Boy Award nominee hype, but he can still accomplish a lot more in his career with him still being 23 years old. And if the rumors are true and Real Madrid want to acquire his services, Fonzie potentially has a career of more stardom ahead of him. The only L he's taken so far is that breakup with Jordan Heidema. That's a sell in my eyes, but hey, we move. On to the player who finished runners-up in the 2020 Golden Boy Award list, we got Ansu Fati. Now, Ansu was born in Guinea-Bissau and only moved to Spain when he was 5 years old because his brother got signed to Sevilla at the time. Anyways, Fati also chose to represent Spain over Guinea-Bissau. Felt like I had to get that part out of the way. Anyways, Ansu Fati started his academy football with Sevilla before joining Barcelona's famous La Masia Academy in 2012 when he was just 10 years old. Fati would excel with La Masia, quickly becoming one of the best players the academy has ever seen. Eventually, in July 2019, Fati signed his first professional contract with Barcelona, and a month later, Fati made his first team debut in La Liga, becoming the second youngest player to debut for the club at the time. He would then go on to break numerous records, like becoming Barcelona's youngest goal scorer ever and the 3rd youngest goal scorer in the history of La Liga at the time. Also became the youngest player to feature for Barcelona in the Champions League, and also the youngest goal scorer in Champions League history at the time when he scored in Barcelona's 2-1 win away against Inter Milan in 2019. He will go on to achieve many more personal records with Barcelona, but overall, his impressive performances as a teenager earned him a spot as number 2 in the Golden Boy Awards in 2020. Ansu Fati will continue to play for Barcelona, even taking the number 10 from Messi after he left, to show that he was the heir to the throne, and that he was the golden child. But in a game against Real Betis, Fati suffered a knee injury, and that meant at the age of 18 years old, he suffered a torn meniscus on his left knee, meaning he was out for 9 months. Ansu Fati will return after those long 9 months, but a few months later, he suffered another hamstring injury that kept him out for 3 months. So as we can see, injuries were clearly hampering his career. Even in the 22-23 season for Barcelona, where Ansu Fati stayed fit for the majority of it, he didn't seem like the same version of the player who broke out to the scene, which limited the amount of minutes he was getting. So much so that in the summer of 2023, Ansu Fati decided that it would be better to go on loan, and instead of joining Tottenham, he made the decision to join Brighton Hove Albion in the Premier League on a season-long loan without an option to buy. But at his time with Brighton, he suffered a pretty serious calf injury that kept him out for 2 months, and in the 28 games he took a part in, a majority of those coming off the bench, he's only scored 4 goals and got 1 assist. Plus, with Barcelona now having a new golden child, aka Lamine Yamal, who genuinely seems more like the real deal compared to Fati, respectfully, it does seem like Fati being Messi's heir to the throne was a little too soon to call, and not many football fans still believe that Fati is Barcelona quality. But at the young age of 21, it's too soon to count him out in my opinion. So in a few years, let's see if Fati lives up to that Golden Boy runners-up potential. Now finally, onto the winner of the 2020 Golden Boy Award, we got the one and only Erling Haaland, the robot himself. Now Haaland was actually born in England, as his father Alfie Haaland was playing for Leeds United in the Premier League at the time. But Haaland moved back to Bryn, a town in Norway, and with him having only Norwegian roots, he was more than proud to choose Norway as his national team compared to England. Anyways, Haaland started in the academy of his hometown club Bryn at the age of 5, before Molde signed the 16-year-old Haaland in February 2017. Haaland would work under their manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at the time, who really believed in him and gave him a ton of opportunities. This belief in the young Erling would pay off, with him finishing the 17-18 campaign as the Breakthrough Player of the Year award. In 2018 though, Haaland took his talents to the Austrian giants Red Bull Salzburg, and this is where Haaland would break into stardom. He scored tons of goals in the Austrian Bundesliga, like multiple hat-tricks for real, and also scored goals in the Champions League against good opposition, like against Liverpool for example. Eventually, after dominating the hell out of the Austrian Bundesliga and accomplishing all he could have at the club, Haaland decided that he needed a move, which is why he decided to move to Borussia Dortmund for 20 million euros in January 2020, despite getting interest from Man City, Juventus, and Manchester United. Haaland would be a beast in his first season, scoring a hat-trick in his debut, winning Player of the Month in his first month being there, scoring a banger against PSG in the Champions League round of 16, etc. In fact, in the 1920 season total, he scored 44 goals and 40 club appearances for both Red Bull Salzburg and Dortmund, and that's why, over any other player on this list, Erling Haaland won the 2020 Golden Boy Award. Well deserved in my opinion. Nobody was better than Haaland at this time. Haaland would go beast mode throughout his time with Dortmund, scoring 86 goals and providing 23 assists in 89 games, before signing with Man City for only 60 million euros due to a release clause. And his first season with Man City was a huge success, with him playing a huge part in Man City winning the treble. And also in that season, he played 53 games, scoring 52 goals and getting 9 assists. I would go into all the records he broke, but you can just check that out in this video I made after I finish up with this one. Anyways, Haaland was in contention for the Ballon d'Or, but barely lost to Lionel Messi for his 8th. Since then, Haaland's had a slower season for the 23-24 campaign, but slow for his standards, because he still bagged 30 plus goals across all competitions. Overall though, it's safe to say that Haaland is 100% living up to his 2020 Golden Boy Award hype, and he's definitely a huge contender for the Ballon d'Or in future seasons. After all, he's still only 23 years old. He's still got plenty of time to win one. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe, I would really appreciate it, and please be sure to follow my Twitter and my Instagram. The links are in my YouTube description. Last but not least, if you want to learn more about the super tight Premier League title race that's happening right now, you definitely want to check out this video right here. You won't regret it.